Hello and welcome to Art Circle Library Teen Summer Reading 2020, the Pandemic Edition. Today in our craft challenges, we are going to be making fantasy maps. Now, the first step for this is to take all of the pieces in your kit and choose what is going to represent what. In your kit, you will find a 20-sided die. I recommend you use that as your capital city, and the rest of them can be whatever features you want. I use them as rivers and villages and mountains and forests, as you see it right here. If you want to make a desert scape, you're obviously going to want something different. But right here is where you choose what all of those four pieces are going to represent. And then off we go into step 2, which is where you scatter things. This is the fun part. So here you will take one of your blank sheets of paper, and you may have to weigh yours down because they've been curled up for several days. But lay it out flat, and then take your kit full of pasta and dye and dump it out on that paper like so. Scatter it around, toss it up. You're trying to make continents, and those are things that happen organically. They are not things that happen by planning and design. This is just something that's going on. And from here, you will then move on into step 3. The drawing part. You will notice in this part of the video that I have sped it up quite a bit. There's no way to actually draw this fast, but take the Sharpie that was included and then you start drawing around the edges of your map. This is a really fun part of this whole project. You can move bits if they're not working for you, and now is when you just start drawing in your features. You've got rivers going on right there. I've put in the capital city, and now I'm drawing in some trees and some lakes. You can see where I'm connecting the waterways where the penny pasta was, and it's just kind of becoming rivers and whatnot. This is also where you can go ahead and label everything. You can see that I am labeling some of the villages. I'm going to label the volcano that I decided was that particular mountain right there. Go whole hog. Just let your imagination fly. Play with this. This is supposed to be a whole lot of fun. If the pieces don't really work where they landed, just move them. It doesn't matter. This is for you. This is supposed to be so much fun. And as long as you use any Sharpie, you can use any color Sharpie if you've got others lying around the house. Go right ahead. Have fun. Just keep going. But eventually we will move out from this phase and into step 4. So once your drawing is complete, you will move on into step 4, just to rough up the edges, because no fantasy map should have straight machine cut edges. That's just not how this is supposed to work. To rough up the edges, you literally just tear them off one by one. You will notice that my head is kind of in frame here. I do apologize for that, but I didn't have the time to reshoot the whole thing. So really just tear off the edges. Be careful not to tear too much. If you want some tears in your map, you can do them here. I recommend waiting until a little later, because one of the next phases is when we will start getting things wet. First, though, is step 5, where you crumple up the paper. This is just to add some texture to it. Sharp-eyed viewers will note that this particular paper is already tea-stained, and that's because I personally forgot to do it when I was supposed to. But you crumple your thing up and then unwrap it, and then we'll move on to step 6. You can do it in the middle. It's not recommended because the paper, when it is damp, is incredibly delicate. Got it uncrumpled, you do want it laid out as flat as possible as we move on into step 6, so that everything will get where it's supposed to go. Step 6 is to age the paper by staining it with tea. For this, you will obviously need your map. You'll need some kind of tray to go under it. You can just use a whole bunch of paper towels if you really want to, but I recommend getting a tray. You will need the tea bag that came with your packet. Go ahead and make the tea. Just put some hot water on it. You're not going to be drinking it, so it doesn't matter. Helpful thing in this will be a hairdryer. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. You can just let it sit until it dries, or put it in the oven. But to get this started, you take your tea bag, or you just take some tea, whatever, and start dumping it on the map. You are going to get this thing completely soaked. This can take a while. You can do it however you want. You figure out what makes the darkest spots and figure out where they want to go. Paper towels are going to be very useful for this. Right here, I am just using the tea bag itself. That will make things a bit darker. Here in just a minute, I'm going to get very tired of trying to dab at it with paper towels and tea bags and just pour the tea directly on. If you want to start that way, go right ahead. Just make sure not to make a mess on whatever it is that you're using. This is usually best done in the kitchen. Be very careful when you're pouring tea like this. You do not need much. It goes a lot further than you would think it will when you're trying to just stain some paper. This is also where you have to be very, very careful with your paper and the edges, because wet paper tears very, very easily. That is why I gave all of you and your kids 3 sheets of paper, because I figured at least one of them is going to get torn and ruined. The Sharpie will not run. That is fine to go. But through all this, you're just trying to get the entire paper covered in tea, and that is just so that it will stain and make it look old like a fantasy map should. Do forgive my head in the frame right there. Turn it around in your tray, whatever you gotta do. Just keep going until you're done. When you've pretty well got everything covered, you'll want to hold it up and let it drain into your tray, and then either put it into a different tray. See, I got some tears right there. This paper is very, very delicate. You can either put it into a different tray or just put it on some paper towels directly. Either way works just fine. If you don't have a hairdryer, you can put this in the oven at like the lowest setting it will go for maybe 200 degrees. Check it every couple minutes until it's dry. If you don't want to do that at all, just leave it out overnight. It will dry out just fine. Step 6 of drying. I took a hairdryer to it because I had one on hand and didn't feel like trying to show doing this in the oven because that's way too much work. So you just hit it with a blow dryer until you feel like it's dry. When it's dry enough, you can move it to some paper towels, which will also help absorb some more of the moisture. And that's pretty much it. If your map doesn't look dark enough, if it doesn't look old enough for you, you can return to and do the tea staining again and again and again. You will not hurt anything. You just got to keep at this until you're done, and when it looks like you want it, congratulations. Here I am putting it on some paper towels to get it dry all the way. And this may take a few minutes, but just keep at it. It's just paper, it will dry. And when it is, congratulations, you are done. You have successfully created your very own fantasy map. Thank you so much for joining us for Teen Summer Reading 2020.